My name is Joanne. Standing in my sister's kitchen, I watched as the world crumbled around me. My mother, with tears streaming down her face, was begging the officers not to arrest my brother-in-law Victor. My sister, Lily, was screaming at me, accusing me of destroying our family. And Victor, the man who had betrayed me, was now being put in handcuffs. The loud bang that had shattered the tense silence was the door being kicked open. 2 officers and a detective, his eyes scanning the room sharply, had burst in. The moment his gaze landed on Victor, he said firmly, "Victor Hill," and it was clear he needed no confirmation. Victor looked like a cornered animal. He had been so confident just moments ago, leaning casually against the counter, thinking he was untouchable. But now, his coffee cup was broken on the counter, and there was real fear in his eyes. Looking back, it all started with what was supposed to be a perfect family reunion. My mother, a kind-hearted but somewhat naive woman, had rented a beach house for the weekend. It was the same house we'd visited every summer since I was a little girl. For once, all the family members showed up. Lily and her husband Victor, my cousins, and even my grandfather, who usually preferred to stay at home, were there. The beach house was lit up with soft string lights, and the smell of grilled chicken filled the air. There was so much food that it seemed like it would last for days. For a few fleeting hours, I allowed myself to believe that we were just a normal, happy family. I laughed, I talked, and I forgot about the long hours at the law firm where I worked. I left around 10 o'clock that night because I had an early meeting the next morning. I hugged my mother goodbye, promised Lily I'd call her soon, and then drove the 50 minutes back to my apartment. The sea breeze blew through my hair, and I felt more relaxed than I had in ages. But that feeling was short-lived. When I got home, I kicked off my shoes and, out of habit, opened my banking app. The number on the screen made my heart stop. My checking account, which I had been saving for 3 years to buy a small apartment of my own and had contained $53,000 that morning, now showed a balance of just $287. I sat on my bed for what felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the transaction history. There it was, a single large wire transfer made that afternoon, while I was at the beach enjoying family time. The money had been sent to an account under Victor Hill's name. I couldn't sleep that night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I called the bank's emergency line. I sat on hold for almost an hour, my heart pounding in my ears. The customer service representative was polite but matter-of-fact. She told me that the transfer had been authorized through an old joint access link. Lily and I had set it up years ago when we were starting our first jobs together and had forgotten to remove it. The transfer wouldn't be automatically flagged as fraud, and if I wanted it investigated as theft, I'd have to file a police report. The next morning, after not a wink of sleep, I drove to Lily's house. I was still in yesterday's clothes, and my eyes were red from crying. Lily opened the door looking irritated, as if I was interrupting something important. When I told her what had happened, she didn't seem surprised at all. She simply called for Victor. He came down the stairs in his bathrobe, carrying a cup of coffee. He looked so calm, as if nothing was wrong. I asked him straight out if he had taken the money from my account. He didn't deny it. Instead, he took a sip of his coffee and said, "We needed it more than you, Joanne. You're successful at your job, you can earn it back. We've been struggling." I stood in that kitchen, the same kitchen where I had celebrated birthdays with them, where we had shared so many happy memories. I felt a cold resolve settle over me. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady. I picked up my purse from the counter, looked him in the eye, and said, "You'll regret this." He laughed, and Lily joined in. "What are you going to do? Cry about it?" Victor sneered. "It's family money, you should be more understanding." I didn't say another word. I walked out of the house, my chest tight with anger and pain. I sat in my car for a long time, trying to calm myself down before I could drive. By the time I reached the police station, I was determined to get my justice. I filed the report that afternoon, giving them every piece of evidence I had: the bank records, the transfer confirmation, and the screenshots of Victor's name on the receiving account. The officer taking my statement reassured me that theft between family members was still a crime, and they would be in touch. I didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. 3 days later, I was back in that kitchen, facing the chaos. As Victor was being led out in handcuffs, he didn't even look at me. He just stared at the floor. After the squad car drove away, the detective asked if we could talk privately. We stepped out onto the porch. He told me that when they pulled Victor's financial records to process my report, they discovered something much worse. Victor had been siphoning money from his own mother's savings account for almost a year. At first, it was small amounts that she wouldn't notice because she rarely checked her statements. But then the amounts got larger. He had used the same joint access loophole he had exploited with me. I was in shock. All this time, I thought I was the only victim. The detective said the investigation was just beginning. There might be more victims they hadn't found yet. He thanked me for filing the report, saying that if I hadn't, Victor would likely have continued his malicious actions, possibly hurting someone who couldn't afford to lose their money. When I went back inside, the kitchen was in a different kind of chaos. My mother was sitting at the table, her head in her hands. Lily was on the phone, desperately trying to find a good lawyer. Everyone had stopped calling me selfish. My mother looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes, and I knew she was struggling to find the right words. I took a deep breath and told her, I didn't do this to cause trouble. I had to protect myself. And it seems no one was protecting Victor's mother either. It took nearly 5 months for the whole case to be resolved. Victor was charged with multiple counts of theft and unauthorized electronic transfers. The financial records painted a picture of a long-term pattern of deception and theft. The court ordered him to pay restitution, and slowly, my $53,000 started to make its way back to my account. But the family I once knew was gone. Lily and I hardly talk anymore. She still believes I betrayed her by going to the police instead of handling it within the family. But I've made peace with that. I worked hard for that money, with late nights and early mornings at the law firm. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even family, take it from me without a fight. My mother and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. She apologized to me eventually, in a quiet way that didn't fully erase what she had said that day but at least acknowledged her mistake. I don't know if Victor will ever feel remorse for what he did. People like him seldom do. But I've changed. I'm not the woman who was afraid to stand up for herself. I've learned that self-protection isn't selfish, even when those who are supposed to love you try to make you think otherwise. If you've ever been in a situation where you've had to stand up for yourself, don't let anyone make you feel guilty. Subscribe to my channel and join me in sharing more stories of betrayal, justice, and the strength to finally say enough.